Yes.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Stevie to do her final roll call.
Good evening, all. Cindy Bond. Lisa Werder Brown. Present. Lloyd Cunningham.
Here.
Dan DeMarco.
Here.
Patricia DeMarco. Here. Tina Doucet. Nick Resock. Mark Heckman. Kelly Kelly. Ken Lasada.
Here.
Hey, Mayor. All right.
Evening, Mayor.
There's no lights.
Ruthie Ann Edinger.
Present.
Will Pickering. Mary Ellen Ramage.
Here.
Tim Rogers.
Present.
Kathy Sapp. Danielle Ventresca. Sean Alfonso Wells. Leah Friedman.
Here.
Office of Allegheny County Executive Sarah Imarato, ex officio.
She said hello.
She said hi.
She said.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
Max Unker.
Here.
Yeah. Did you get 7 or 8?
I got 8.
8.
But we need 9 for a quorum with 17
Okay,
seated members and 4
Yeah, the
vacancies.
check marks are interfering.
All right, so we won't be able to do any of the action items, but first of all, I did want to welcome everyone. And there were some new people, I believe some new staff here from ALCOSAN. Be nice if you go around the room so you could introduce yourselves. You can start. Go ahead, Tom.
I guess that would be me. My name's Tom Heston. I'm the manager of communications. Nice to meet you all. I think I've seen some of you at Alon.
All right. We're gonna go all the way around, so that way you know us too. Go ahead.
Derek Evans, I work in communications. I help on this.
All right.
Snelsky, Governmental Affairs. Julie Buckley, Director of.
Pardon me, I didn't hear that.
Julie Buckley, Director of Administration.
Thank you.
Phil Cole, Georgia IT. I'm Jackson, Director of Operation and Maintenance, Deputy Executive Director.
Davey Conley, ex Alcosan.
Yes.
Ironically, you're still on the healthcare.
Yes.
That sounded very enthusiastic.
Taylor Walker, Administrative Assistant for the Communications Department.
Tim Prevost, Manager of Well Weather Programs.
Jeff Ardross, Manager of Capital Projects at the treatment plant.
Sean McWilliams, Project Engineer for Regional Commands.
And I think we skipped me. So Michelle Riley, the Director of Environmental Compliance.
I'm Jean Clark, Director of Governmental Affairs.
Thanks.
Erica Lamar Motley, Director of Scholastic Outreach and Education. Eric Antoni, Director of Finance. Single.
Dave Moss, 3 Rivers.
Dan Sherrick, Manager of Capital Projects. Good days.
Wonderful. Mary Ellen Ramage from Etna Burma. Thank you very much.
Hey, Mary Ellen.
Hey, you said that.
Mary Ellen, I just
Yes.
needed to point out, the link that came through today, it didn't save to my calendar for today. I went back to last year on the 24th of April. I just wanted, I think there was a
Well,
problem.
that might explain some of it as a stupid Zoom trick. It's not our fault.
Yeah, I decided to go back to last year and the link went into the 24th of
Right.
last year. And I was able to join, so that
Oh,
might
that's-
be a problem that we're having.
You resent the link to that.
Thank you, because that could be what the issue is with, because some of the people that aren't here were spoken to verbally today and were coming. We just
Yeah,
thought
They may
maybe
be
they
having a,
problem.
yeah, they may be having a problem. I noticed though that there was a, I looked at the email, there was an email yesterday that,
Yes.
that seemed to be for today. And then I happened to get this email today, just thinking, well, I just clicked the link on the one I got today, and here, for whatever reason, I just thought maybe I should go back. And I said, oh yeah, it was set up for last year on that date and time.
Sorry, I can't hear. I can't hear you. Sorry.
Okay, we just resent the link to everybody, so hopefully people are waiting with bated breath for the right link.
And I did, we have some people online too, if they could introduce themselves. I know, there's someone here from the county executive's office now, since Darla Corbata has retired, so you could say hello.
Hi, sure. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is safe and has what they need, have power at home. I know many of you probably do not. But thank you for having me. My name's Leah Friedman. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff in County Executive Sarah Innamorado's office. As many of you know, Darla retired a couple of weeks ago. I've been working closely with her for the last year. So I am happy to join for tonight. And good to meet you all.
Thank you.
It's up there.
I just want to say hi. I'm Julia Spiker. I'm with ALCOSAN. Sorry I can't join you all in person at the plant today. I'm joining from somewhere in the conveyance system.
Secret. All right, we can move on with the agenda then.
Oh, no, wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name's Ken Lasota.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the mayor of
Hi, Mayor.
Heidelberg. I'm the mayor of Heidelberg. I've probably been attending more of these ALCOSAN meetings than Jeannie. So I've been here forever. Thank you very much.
It's like, we just lost somebody. Oh,
Yeah, there he is.
there's Dan.
Okay. Okay, so the next is the details of the.
Yeah, we're gonna have to move on to item 4, which is the details of the annual public meeting and results.
We have a short PowerPoint, but it probably isn't really necessary. I just wanted to give an update on our 2025 annual public meeting and our proposed revision. So we held a meeting on February 26, 2025 for our public meeting, which updated the public on our clean water plan and proposed revisions to the consent decree. That is a consent decree requirement to do a public meeting. So we do that on an annual basis. And if we do have revisions to the consent decree, we include that in that meeting as well. And I can just talk through that as we'll see if Derek can get it on the screen as well. So what I encourage you to do is, if you want to see the public meeting, is to go on our website. We have a YouTube channel that provides an hour's worth of updates for our clean water plan, and very informative and great photos and images and a lot of details. But what I'll do today is just provide you with the revisions that we requested for that. All right, now you're going to make me work this one, Derek. Okay, there we go. So the first revision to the consent decree is to update our list of combined sewer overflows and our sanitary sewer overflows. That consent decree was written in 2008, which had our original, which still is our outfalls. But as you know, our regionalization program has taken off, and we have adopted some more outfalls, and now we want those included in our consent decree. So when we go through revisions, we'll be continuously adding those as we incorporate those into our system. So that was the first proposed revision. The second proposed revision is that we're providing a process to eliminate a primary treatment tank That elimination is, we have a redundant wet weather tank in the wet weather plan. And this elimination will still provide equivalent treatment. It will have the same end results and it meets the goals of the consent decree. So the provision is to eliminate this tank and have the agencies incorporate that into our revised consent decree. And the last change is kind of minor, but not really. So we have fecal coliform in our consent decree for water quality bacteria monitoring. And since the 2008 consent decree, E. coli has been more the parameter for measuring water quality. And furthermore, fecal coliform on surface water has to be monitored by a membrane filtration method. And that method laboratories are not readily using any longer because it has been a new method of color. A color method that's easier but that is only used for E. coli. So on surface waters, you can't measure fecal coliform with this improved method. The agents, we've been meeting with USGS, the US EPA, DEP, and the health department on this, and they are in favor of this revision, and we will materialize that in our request.
So you're doing testing of stream water
Yes, water quality monitoring.
below the outfalls?
It's
General.
It's in general, and it's part of our post-construction monitoring plan. So as we do revisions and do implementation of the clean water plan, we will do water quality monitoring and then produce those results in a model to perform like an outcome of the improvements to the
So how
water.
do you separate someone who's upstream from this?
So that's the beauty of the model, is that the model will able to simulate how we cause or contribute to water impairment, how are the outfalls do. So the model will take into account what's coming into our system and then what's in our system and then what the water quality is as it leaves.
Do you monitor just along the rivers or do you go up in the tributaries?
They'll be up in the tributaries as well.
Like in Shaler, I mean, I have a sanitary sewage treatment plant north of me. They're under construction, so they've had significant issues. So what you're gonna see in Pine Creek is what we're doing.
All from our outfalls,
Right.
correct. So I think that is why the use of a model is necessary, because you can add those nodes into a model to simulate the water quality. This is a model that ALCOSAN has established for many decades. And this is, so the added data that we're adding it to now only builds on this analysis. And it's incorporated into our consent decree as a requirement as well. And the plans have been reviewed up to this point for us to start the monitoring by the EPA.
And not to get into the weeds, but how do you get the data upstream and how do you know you're being given the correct data coming up?
So there is
fairness to.
there's probably
ALCOSAN.
far more qualified people to answer that question, Ruth Ann, but basically there's a database of information that's built into the model that will provide that background level. Is that what you're asking more or less? Like, what is the background level and how do you measure that?
Of what we're receiving, because ALCOSAN is here, but everything you're getting upstream. Just curious as who
Yeah.
gives it to you and how do you know, be honest with you, that it's correct, but
Yeah.
that's getting into the weeds, I think, too much, sorry.
Well, could you test to follow that? Could you test upstream of us?
Mike has some.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot upstream and downstream that fits for, we got USGS to samples across the transect, on the river. So there's, I don't know how many transects you have to pull that are sampled. And that information is like fed into the water quality model. But it's thousands of samples that are collected upstream and downstream. So we have a good idea what's coming in to the region and a good idea what's leaving the region. So that we can estimate what the impact or what the plan is.
So you're doing that sampling.
But
USGS.
USGS.
Yes, they are.
Top notch. Yeah, they're good.
I just want to make sure we're being treated fairly.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
And we're sampling up and down the drifts.
Yep.
Okay.
So they're gonna have a good sense of what's coming in and coming out.
Yep.
Pretty robust program.
It's been a long standing as well. So
Are these new UGS monitoring that I've seen in streets around Sawmill Run.
Yes.
Okay, I was just, because people have asked me about those and I didn't know I said, well, they're clearly USGS, but what they're monitoring, I don't know, so.
That's my question is, you mentioned that we monitor for coliform, but do we monitor for anything else? Like radioactive boron from frack water, perhaps?
So that is not part of our
That's not-
consent decree. Again, we have sewage parameters because of the discharge of sewage is what we're
So
demonstrating.
things like
Right.
PFAS and other.
Correct, we
things
don't
like
have
we
that.
don't want.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Heavy metals, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's, yeah, and there's more information about that, on our website in our consent decree, but we can go through that as we advance that program, we'll be sharing more information about it, in further presentations. Okay, whoops, and I do have one more slide, I think, see, I did not click the right button.
I have one question, Michelle. So the USGS monitoring sites, they're monitoring for more than E. coli, they're monitoring for a variety of
For bacteria?
yeah, yeah.
For bacteria, so we are doing some subsets of fecal coliform.
No, but I mean,
yeah.
are they doing any metals or any heavy metals or anything? Okay, so there's a whole variety of parameters that they're measuring. Okay.
Correct, yeah, and it's not, I don't have the list in front of me right now, but it's not completely extensive. There's
Right.
metals, there's nutrients, it's sewage parameters, and that sewage parameters is defined in our consent decree.
Okay,
Right, nutrients, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So the last thing that, for this update is we just wanted to emphasize our adaptive management provisions are continuous and ongoing. As we see, information that is available to us, we will use that information to determine if our consent decree can be adaptable. We always have to prove whether it's equivalent or better, because that is the level of performance that we're held to for the consent decree. And we will go through those revisions as necessary. So where we're at now, so the public meeting was in February. I think I had it on the front, February 26th. We had a 30-day public comment period on that. We received several comments, but nothing significant about the revisions, just general ALCOSAN comments, nothing negative. It was positive meeting. We now will be in a formal request to the agencies for this revision, and then they'll have a 6-month review period for them to determine whether these revisions are acceptable and in line with the consent decree goals.
how many attendees did you have?
I'm gonna have to lean on my PR. Tom, do you know how many attendees for the public meeting?
Yeah, I think around 60.
Okay.
Pretty good.
That's- that is
So, yeah, it was a virtual meeting. We held it here. And so folks were able to log on, and we effectively were able to use chat functions for questions, and they came through and we were able to answer them. So it was, I thought it was well attended. We had more questions at that meeting than some of the other ones. So
It's very good.
yeah. All right, do you have any other questions?
By going up to YouTube, and watching the whole thing.
Yeah, the YouTube, it is worthy. I know Jeff Ardress does a great job at the flyovers of the plant, and that's really impressive when you see it from a flyover and some of the animations that Jeff provides. So, and others as well. We have grow, regionalization, and the tunnels is always, those are the four pillars that you can navigate through at that meeting. So it's great one to revisit. Hey,
All right,
thank you.
thank you. Very good, very good. And next we're gonna have a recap of the ALOM conference and the various presentations and activities that ALCOSAN. Ready?
Yes, report to the advisory committee. Who was at the ALOM conference?
Oh, yeah, I was
Yeah, so I'm talking about, so, Sharon, do we have the gifts for the people that were not? Yes. Okay, so Patty and Lloyd need the gift for, you didn't get the lunch. And you're gonna get the gift. Yeah. And so, we had a great attendance at the meeting. We had some terrific comments afterward. But we wanted to review with you what we said so that you could ask more in-depth questions if you wanted to. So I guess I should toss it to Julia, right? She's the first one on the thing. And Julia is here somewhere from the regionalized world.
Thank you, Jean. So since ALOM, even though it was just a few weeks ago, we have an update to the miles transferred. So we're over 55 miles transferred right now. We have many applications into DEP, so that number will continue to climb throughout 2025. Over the past year, we doubled the miles that came over. So we had 12, then 25, and now we're here above 50. So this is really a testament to the municipalities, to their engineers, to the municipal managers, and the partnership that we have with Three Rivers Wet Weather, because not a single mile of pipe in regionalization can be transferred without a multi-party collaboration. So this is something that the whole region should be really proud of. We've accomplished something that some said was the impossible and would never happen. And if we go on to the next slide, we begin to look at why the program exists. So this is one of the 4 pillars, as Michelle mentioned, of the Clean Water Plan. And it's the pillar that's focused on improving the infrastructure that's there. Regionalization is truly about improving that system that has existed and served the region for over 100 years now. Many of the permits that we look at are from 1929, 1930. So this is infrastructure that has been the backbone of our region. And now we transfer it. That means operation, maintenance, and future improvements come along with that transfer to ALCOSAN as well. So going on to the next slide, we're looking at the streamline of compliance. I mentioned those permits that we've been reviewing. Once they're transferred to us, we become the permittee for those miles of sewers. But also, I think it's really important that we are responsible for the overflows and the regulators that come along with them. In total, there's a little over 80 that are eligible to transfer. We've had now 7 CSOs and we've had 4 SSOs. And actually, it's more CSOs with this final A68 transfer that came over. So immediately, our crews begin going out, inspecting, monitoring. You'll see the CSO signs that have the ALCOSAN contact information and notification go up at those locations. Tim and his crews begin flow monitoring so that we know how to ultimately control or eliminate those structures. So we become the point of contact. We know through with regulatory agencies, and we know through the collaboration on the COAs that many of those projects are saying, here's how we'd ultimately have to eliminate that SSO. However, we plan to participate in the regionalization program. And that's just an example of why it's important to regionalize. And then finally, the last function of regionalization that we wanted to highlight was that it optimizes the performance of the system. Those arbitrary artificial boundaries go away, and we can start looking at how the system itself can support the other pillars of the Clean Water Plan. So now I'll turn it over to Jeff to talk to you about the plan expansion.
If I could just say, Jeff, before we move on to plan expansion, a lot of the people on this committee were very involved in getting regionalization going from the, what was the name of that? Shrift. Right.
Well, and even
Right.
before that,
And
they
even before
studied with
the
CMU.
CMU.
That
Yeah.
was 2009.
And the work with Connect to reach out. And so it really is great that everybody was working cooperatively together. It was pretty amazing for me to see. And, as we're starting to reach beyond the folks that were easy to get, I'm hoping you all talk to your friends and say, what are you waiting for?
It's great to see it come this far, because you were right, a lot of people, too many people in this room are too young to even know.
I think
But
Tim
a
and
lot
I
of,
were on the.
a lot of work with all the.
Jerry Cohen.
Yeah, I was on his committee with you and all the stuff, and it came out and people thought we were crazy. We got a lot of discussions against us.
A lot of fighting.
Yes, but I just think it's really, everyone should be complimented and appreciate the ALCOSAN stuff, because I just never thought it would kick off this far. And even the ones that are tough, they'll eventually, it comes around. You just gotta be patient.
Well, and I want to say, because they just said the last one was A68. And that's extremely complex system. It really is. It was identified as that. And I want to say how wonderful Julia and ALCOSAN and Three Rivers have been in helping see that over the finish line. And I got my email last week with the last permit. I did my happy dance in the office. And I called my council president and said, I want this on the agenda. And I have spoken about this, and I truly mean this, because I've been there very, 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 very long time. Stores were the worst thing in my job from day one. You know, I honestly believe that in my career there, this is the single most important thing that has happened in my community that will improve the quality of life for my residents. I'm prouder of this than anything that I've been involved in. And I want to thank people sitting around this table who helped to make it happen. I really mean that. People, they're like, oh, your riverfront park. I'm like, it's Source. It is truly Source. So I really want to say the effort was awesome, and I'll miss my partners upstream in our negotiations.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll really miss them.
Her nickname in the North Hills is Rampage.
And it's not for everyone, and there will be some systems, everyone has to realize this won't transfer. Too small, maybe too far off the line, but you know, overall.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I know many of you saw this at ALM, and some saw a modified version at the Three Rivers Working Group in the week since, but I do have some fresh information in here to shake it up a little bit. One thing to highlight really as we start the tour, you drive in here just like you did today. This environmental compliance facility at the bottom of your screen, that is a building that we did move into. It is not a process building. However, it is a part of this planned expansion because what it did, it's going to free up space in this general area for building of our new primary sedimentation tank over the next 5 years. So it's all a big puzzle of this plant, and that was a big piece of that. Where we're going to stop with our first stop on the tour is the East Headworks facility. You've likely seen this if you come out to open house. It's been the backdrop since 2021, and it's been different every year. First year it was just this deep hole. Eventually, you can see the foundation being poured. Our tower cranes, they were a big highlight in an open house one year. Eventually, the concrete starts being poured, and then I think you're going to see a large concrete pour in this area. That happened in July of 2023. The steel went up, and we highlighted the topping out of this last steel beam in August of 2023. So that was the backdrop of Open House 2023. In the time since, the one tower crane's been gone. Eventually, you'll see the other one go, and you'll see the concrete pavement coming along the side. So again, this will be the backdrop for Open House 2025, but we're going to see a nice, beautiful building. And so our facade, you've got the drones circling it. You can see all the different sides. The blue piping, what that is, that's our odor control system. This is all tying into our existing odor control system to make sure that our neighbors are getting treated air around us. So as our tour continues north, you'll see our primary sedimentation tanks. This is where we're going to build that new one. These are the two buildings that have to come down as a part of that. So that's those staff moved into that environmental compliance facility. And so our next stop on the tour is our CSO bypass and disinfection project. This project's been under construction since late 2022. We really started to break ground in 2023. And where a lot of the work has occurred to date is back in this area. It's really hard to see. I promise in the next couple slides, I'll show you some overhead views. But that's the connection point between primary treatment and secondary treatment. The other thing that we really have to show for this project is this new chemical building. We are in the riverfront zone, so we did have to work with the city to make sure that what the facade of this building looks like is a nice, beautiful image from the river. And so that is what you're seeing with this building. So we've got the facade built. We haven't moved any of our chemical tanks in there quite yet, but you can see the building itself is just about complete from the exterior. The final piece of this is a reconfigured bypass disinfection tank. And these next videos will really show what the purpose of that is. We've actually just earlier this week placed a time-lapse camera kind of towards the bottom left of this screen. So hopefully in the next year, we'll have some nice imagery to show as far as what's happening up here. But those upsized flow regulating chambers, where a lot of that work has occurred in the last couple of years, what I have here are 3 images that just kind of show the process. So the bottom of your screen, that's primary treatment. The top is secondary treatment. The only thing that's connecting these 2 treatments is this buried piping. It's not an open channel where flow goes through. This is where we actually measure plant flow. It's the one master location. So we've got 8 different connection points that connect us from the primary treatment to secondary treatment, and we're replacing them in pairs. So the first 2 were the 2 towards the middle, one on the east, one on the west. So here you're seeing the exposed piping. You have to keep in mind, this is buried piping usually. It's below a road. And then eventually, over time, you can see our concrete starting to be formed, and then the concrete being poured. And I don't believe I have any images today, but we've actually just turned phase 1, which is these 2 pipes, on. And eventually this will come back up to surface and be backfilled, and it will be a road again. What we really had to do here is we had to increase the size of the piping because, as you all know, our plant expansion, the goal is more than doubling our plant's capacity. So we have to get from 250 million gallons per day up to 295 million gallons per day through these pipes. And the only way to do that was to upsize. So the other thing to highlight, and again, I showed this at ALOM, but a reminder, this is that area where we just put that time lapse. What's happening here today, this is all being demoed at that northern extent. What you're seeing though is January 15th, I took this video where it's showing we don't have flow in this chlorine contact tank. This was during a secondary treatment shutdown where we had to do a major construction element of our North End project and this project. So what we're seeing is the path that our flow has taken since 1970 when secondary treatment went online. And eventually you can see it goes out to the river, and that's our old outfall. And I believe this transitions into a video from the outfall showing the final moments on January 16th when we did retire our outfall. So the drone is going out into the frozen Ohio River, and it really gave a good delineation of where our outfall was. But you can see it settles, there's no more plume, and that's the retirement of our legendary outfall that's been in service since 1959. But as I mentioned at ALOM, you have to remember, we bottled up all that flow. We stopped discharging it to the river. So we had to remember we have to figure out where to send it. And this is where we're going to go next. We're flying north all the way to our North End project. And so on January 16th, once we started bottling up the flow reversed direction. And we sent it to this new chlorine contact tank, our new disinfection tank. And what you're seeing is a video sped up about 10 times. What you're seeing is about 15 minutes of that contact time. The treatment process and disinfection, that's how it works. You have the chemical interacting with the flow. So you're seeing the first drops of flow going through our new disinfection tank. What you're seeing over here, these are our air diffusers to mix the chemicals, but also to add oxygen prior to discharging it out of the outfall. And eventually what happens is the water raises up in this disinfection tank. It's about 15 feet deep. And eventually it overflows into these new troughs. This is our new effluent. I think I said it. I think it's a beautiful image. I mean, it's a sewer outfall, but it is a nice looking outfall. And I think it's something we should really be proud of. So these are the first drops going out of our new outfall. So all that flow we bottled up at our old outfall, it's now going out our new outfall. So we'll continue going south again. This is the final detail of our North End project. So we've turned on the disinfection piece of our North End project, but how we're going to get up to 295 million gallons per day later this year is by completing WFS9. The other item is EFS9. We're mostly done with that one, so the focus has been WFS9 over the last year. So we've got about 8 months of construction sped up in this time lapse. So you can see, you have to remember, this is a 140-foot diameter clarifier. It doesn't really come across like that in an image, but this is a giant one, and this is going to bring us to a total of 18. So we've got 18 140-foot diameter clarifiers. So once we activate this at EFS9 later this year, that will get us up to the 295 million gallons per day. And then we're going to head to our last stop. We're going to go south of McKees Rocks Bridge again. We're going to end up going by our main pump station, that red building, which you've all been on a tour before. and you've seen into that wet well, that's the location of it. But our final stop's actually going to be a future project, our wet weather pump station. What you're seeing in the background, it's just a dead substation at this point. It's a part, we have to demolish that to get started. And what I really want to highlight here, because I'm going to hand it over to Sean next to talk about the tunnel, is this project is the connection point between the plant expansion program that I'm talking about, and then also the tunnel program that Sean's going to be talking about. So here's that wet weather pump station. Here is that existing main pump station. It's about 200 feet right across the road. And then also what I'm showing here is our dewatering tunnel. It'll be about 160 feet deep. It'll connect from our wet weather pump station to the first Ohio River Tunnel shaft. So I do have a virtual tour of this wet weather pump station. And starting off, we're on the west side facing the river. Again, a reminder, we're in the riverfront zone. So we do need to make sure that the facade that is accessible to the public is showing a nice image. So what we've done here, it's a cost effective, but it's also a nice looking building. This is really just standard brick with different angles showing off different shades as you walk by. And then we're going to head into the north of the building. The video isn't moving as fast as it was at ALOM, so it's not going to be like a roller coaster like it was, but we're going to just enter in from the north of the building into the main floor. So this is going to look very similar to what our main pump station looks like, in that we've got the upside down U piping. This is siphon piping. So we've got 6 of these for each of the 6 pumps that are down in the basement. What this does is the flow goes over this and then discharges out into treatment at the rest of our treatment plant. Then we're going to enter our elevator, and the elevator is going to take us down about 150 feet down to our pump level. This is a stop on the tour in the main pump station that we don't usually get to take. We don't get to take people down to our pumps, but because it's a virtual tour, we're going to get to see our 6 pumps down here. And you'll notice 2 at the one level, and then we're going to fly over the 2 at the farthest end. And there's a reason for that. This tunnel is going to operate at multiple different elevations. It's going to operate as low as 5 feet and as high as up to almost 95 feet in the tunnel. And so these pumps really have to operate against a lot of different static head conditions. And so because of that, we have 2 pumps at a lower elevation. And then we're going to enter a door that's going to bring us down even lower. And this is going to take us to the new lowest point in Allegheny County. This will be about 180, 185 feet deep. We are actually below the pumps at this point. And so on the left side of the screen, that is the wall that's separating the wet well from the dry well. And then we've got our horizontal piping that is going to suck the piping or suck the flows in from the wet well into the pumps right above us, up into that upside down U piping. So we're going to walk around this 3rd pump, and then what you're seeing on the right side of your screen, these are kind of emergency flow pumps that if we're seeing flow in our dry well, we need to make sure that it's not going to flood out our dry well. So that will handle those sorts of flows. You're seeing some duct work along as we enter, or as we go by the 5th and the 6th pump. And then we're going to enter the elevator, and then we're going to go up 2 floors from here. We're going to go by the pumps, but you have to remember that pumps don't operate on their own. They operate with motors. So we're going to go to the motor floor. And the motors are going to be extended shaft motors that sit basically about 15 feet above the pumps. This is a little bit different than our main pump station. Our main pump station, they actually sit on sort of tripods. But in this pump station, we're actually going to have their own dedicated floors. So we'll walk by these 6 motors, and then eventually we're just going to kind of zoom up from here. We're not in any sort of an elevator. It's just kind of us flying at this point. You're seeing some of our cranes, some duct work, and then you're seeing just how much vertical piping there is with each of these 6 pumps. You got to remember, this is 180 feet deep. So where we are now, though, I like to call it the basement, but it's a confusing term because it's just the floor below where you are walking into the building. And what you're seeing is the opposite side of the upside down U piping. This is our discharge side. And what you're seeing here, this is a control valve. It's a cone control valve. So again, we're operating at multiple different static head conditions. So these cone valves are gonna be able to introduce an artificial head to really help those pumps stay on their curve and operate in their preferred operating ranges. So eventually, we are going to head back upstairs through this doorway, and we're gonna end up right back where we started when we walked into the building. And the last thing I really want to highlight as we walk into this room is you'll see a bridge crane kind of fly across the ceiling. And why I really like to highlight this is, as engineers, we don't always think about the end users, but at ALCOSAN, we really do try to work closely with Doug and his staff, because operations and maintenance, they're the ones that need to live with this. We can't just design it in a box. We need to make sure that everything we're designing is fully accessible by a crane. And we have to be able to pull these pumps and these motors that are 180 feet deep with minimal interruptions. So that's really what I wanted to highlight. So to wrap up, we're going to head back into the south side. What you're seeing over here, this is our future odor control system for the wet weather pump station. And a couple things to highlight. We're just going to stay at grade here. Here is a future provision for screens in the future. We are not installing it on day one. We don't envision that we're going to need it. However, it's going to be much more cost effective for us to install it today. The last stop I'll leave you with is looking down into the wet well. So this is a stop that we always stop at on our plant tours, but you're always seeing sewage. This is what it looks like without any sewage in it. You're seeing the other side of that discharge piping that we saw. So we're looking down about 180 feet. And this is where our pumps will be operating against 5 feet deep, or 95 feet deep. So that's it for me. I'll hand it over to Sean.
Thanks, Jeff. It's always fitting for Jeff to go first on the plant upgrades and talk on the wet weather pump station. Because the wet weather pump station will be the downstream end of where the tunnels connect and how it gets the flow into the plant. And so with that, the pump station and the Ohio River Tunnel, our first tunnel project, will have to be constructed on the same time frame. One will have to be ready to go so that the other can operate. So we've been planning for quite a while on the tunnel system. Going back to the mid 2000s, basin planning, moving to preliminary planning. We started our first tunnel design, bringing the designer on board for that in 2021, the end of that year. And we've been working on it ever since. So in all, with the new tunnel system, we'll have 16.5 miles of new conveyance that will be constructed. The main tunnel will be 18-foot finished diameter with 2 14-foot river crossings that are part of the Ohio River Tunnel at Sawmill Run and then Chartiers Creek right outside the plant here. You go back here. So as part of the preparation, as we're right now 100% designed for the Ohio River tunnels come in, we're completing that design review, working out the final details as we move towards bid ready documents. We're also in the process of procuring or getting our major permits that we work with DEP. We're lining up the permits that we need with the city. We've done a lot of work with our utility provider in Duquesne Light, with the city of Pittsburgh being an older city and the infrastructure not quite having the needs that are necessary for a project of this size. We've been working closely with them so that we can get power to our sites where we have to launch the tunnel boring machines. It's a demand that we have, it's just not there for them to provide at this time. So in preparation for bidding this project, as we look to do that later this year, we've gone out with some early works projects. Some of those are sites such as this, as you see here, this is our 041 site. We've procured those key sites, and then we've taken down the existing building and infrastructure that's there as we prepare the sites for construction. This is part of that project. The other aspect of it is on the other side of the Ohio River on the south side there, at our 014 site, which was an existing salvage yard. So we went in, we got that site, we got it prepared, we took down the buildings that were there, and you can see the before and after of those sites and what they will be ready for when construction begins. We did another project, another second early works project, and this is for our main site, which we call Access Shaft 1 or AS1. As you can see, this is down the lower side. This is over
Right on the north side between the Veterans Bridge and the Chestnut Street Bridge by the old Heinz plant. This will be our major launch site for the tunnel boring machine. This is where we'll launch the ORT tunnel, TBM. We'll also launch the ART, Allegheny River Tunnel, TBM upstream. And then the Monongahela River Tunnel, TBM, will be coming into the shaft, which is that purple circle you can see on the site there. There was a few properties there that had existing buildings, which we've just recently started here in the last month to go in and take those down and terminate the old utility services there. And there's also, as you can see on the upper left, there was an old historic ladle that was there that was left. And when we started looking at the site, we figured out that the owner of that was the Heinz History Center. So as part of that job, the crews went there, they loaded it up, and now it resides over right by their facility. There, we highlight the one building that's left in place, so the Turner Hall. That building is owned by ALCOSAN and being taken over, and then we'll be maintaining that property. And at the end of this project, along with the rest of the properties, just deciding what the final use of that will be. So we have one more early works project, and this is for our key site over in the McKees Rocks Bottom neighborhood. That area that's outlined in red there is the site that's needed so that we can construct the shaft there along Ellis Street. And then as you can see, there's also going to be a regulator, which is that outlined yellow structure that'll drop flow to that 150-foot depth in the red circle. And then we'll have another connecting tunnel in green there, which will proceed down Shinga Street and connect into the Chartier Street Tunnel as a blind connection. So that work is getting ready to bid. We're finishing up that project here, and within the next month, we'll be putting that out on the street to get that work done. All this work is key so that when our contractor comes on board, they have sites that are prepared and ready to go, and we don't have to build this into their time frame. Along with this work here, we also worked with Westview Water for this site. They also had to go in and relocate some water mains so that that's out of the way, because we'll be taking up a large portion of that street there and having to work around the existing utilities. So as we talk about the progress we're making, we look at the momentum of the program. This gives you an idea of, this is our first shaft just outside the plant, 027. And this is where the dewatering tunnel will connect into the plant and the wet weather pump station. This is our typical arrangement of how we will direct flow from the surface structures down through baffle drop structures and into the tunnel elevation. As I mentioned before, the tunnel elevation is approximately 150 feet below grade. That puts us roughly 50 feet lower than our existing deep tunnel interceptor. And with that, we're able to drop flow down and just work in this tunnel configuration with minimal impact of the surface. Now this shows you what the arrangement or the alignment for the Ohio River Tunnel looks like. As I mentioned, that Access 1 shaft, which is located over here on the north side, just on the other side of the Veterans Bridge. That'll be our key site where we'll launch the tunnel boring machine. It'll proceed downstream towards the plant and end at the 027 site, which is just on West Hall Street, right outside the plant. We've also procured that property off of our neighbor Sherwin-Williams there, so that's an extension onto our existing plant property. And then, as I mentioned, there's two river crossings there at Sawmill Run and Chartiers Creek. Besides the site in McKees Rocks, the 06A and 07 site, the rest of the work will be completed in this phase within the city of Pittsburgh. The other portion of the tunnel program that we're working on right now is the Allegheny River Tunnel, since we just started the design on that at the end of last year. This is just a snapshot of one of the areas where we started some early design work in the upper Allegheny reaches. So this is a redevelopment site located in Sharpsburg, Aspinwall, O'Hara Township. And you can see some of the work that's been done there. And that is where we have the red outlined area on this map. So this gives you an idea of the overall alignment of the Allegheny River Tunnel in blue. We're currently working on looking at all the sites where we have to put shaft pickups. We're evaluating those sites for alternatives and looking for opportunities to optimize the system right now. So whenever we're completed with the work, majority of the work will be underground. People won't really know unless they were around that it is there. What we will have left behind is the buried infrastructure that'll operate, and this will be operating in parallel to our existing infrastructure, which will remain in service, only operating when we have wet weather and conveying flow to the plant. On the Ohio River Tunnel, we only have two structures where we have above ground facilities that will be constructed, and that is for the active control gate locations. One of those is at 027, as I mentioned, on West Hall Street. And the other one, which is depicted here, is at A58. And this is located over on the north side off of River Avenue in the area of Hamilton. And so with that, we'll have a shaft, which picks up flow. We'll have sluice gates, which will operate in conjunction with sensors in the tunnel. And that'll be to protect the tunnel whenever we get rapid filling and air movement, which could create surge effects. These gates will close off so that flow will no longer enter for that period. And that'll keep it from surcharging more, damaging the tunnel and causing geysering conditions. At these locations, as with our other shafts, the only other above ground structure will be some type of venting, which we'll put in. And with the nature of the tunnel and the research that we've done, we don't anticipate that there'll be a need for odor control. So with these, since it's going to be very dilute, we'll just have vent stacks, which would be well above normal elevation for a person, and it should be very minimal, if at all. With that, I will hand it over to Tim Kribos to talk about growth.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, so at ALOM, Julia, Jeff, Sean, they talked about all the projects that are coming up. I ended it by talking about the project that is, getting close to being. Grow has been around for now we're in 9 years. And so I wanted to talk about the impact. And I also promised that my party will be very fast. So just walking through a few images of the various projects that we had throughout the service area. But what we wanted to focus in on were just where we're at. So $77 million of grants were awarded as of when we were at ALOM. 204 projects that actually went down one. One of the offers came back, they declined it. So it happens. So 203 projects in the ALCOSAN service area grow. As of ALOM, we have dispersed $31 million, actually as of the end of 2024. And those $31 million went to 111 of those 200 plus projects. As of the end of 2024, 101 projects had submitted final reports for us to review. This number has since the end of 2024 increased significantly. The most anticipated reports that we got were several from Pittsburgh Water. So a lot of their green infrastructure projects, we finally received those final reports. And finally, the impact that the projects, and they're not ALCOSAN projects, they're municipal projects. And at ALOM, I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge that we're helping the municipalities, but they are municipal projects. And the results, based on the final reports that we received, over 1 billion gallons of water has been taken out of the system. And based on that knowledge and monitoring that had been taking place, rerunning the data, and over 200 million gallons of overflow reduction. So the program's being successful, and 77 million out of the 100 million we are nearing the end. And as I promised, that was very fast. I don't know if there are questions, but I think we're.
Do you want a question? Yeah, go.
I have a question for Sean.
Sure.
Sean, you were showing the tunnels and where they're gonna be situated along, especially, I'm curious about the Ohio River one, especially at Sawmill Run. And I would like you to speak to how you're coordinating efforts with River Life and they're completing the loop.
Sure. Yeah, we don't have a slide there for that, but we've been working in conjunction with River Life for a while now, as we learned about their plans for connecting the loop. I was at a public meeting where they were actually there as well, talking about the progress they've made, and they have a very good slide which shows their ramps and how they're configuring those to come off the bridge and everything. And it's hard to tell unless you have knowledge of it, but we've worked with them so that they shifted their ramps and they fit in conjunction with our shaft construction there. So we're clearing those areas for our work, and then once we're completed with it, they'll have an area where they can go in and construct that. So there's been very good work with them to make sure that that's happening. They won't be able to get in to do that work until after our work's completed, but they're aware of that timing, and they know that that space is there when we're done.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about the Allegheny River Tunnel as well. And I don't want to take everybody's time up here, but I know the location, when it was first talked about, I was out in the field with people, Mike. And I understand it's gonna be different. I'd really like to connect with somebody on that so that I have an understanding. Since, it'll be in that, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah, we still have the pickup points they were showed there. So A68, the pickup point, and we have A69, 70 up along there. Yeah.
New development.
Yep. Yeah. So as I mentioned,
I just connected later with you, but
that's okay. That's it.
It's under evaluation. And is managing.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're currently having workshops to look at evaluate all those sites.
On the Ohio, River Run, do you have an estimated cost for that? Guessing that we'd never give outside this room or to the papers or to the whatever. Just the public. If anybody listens to it, but just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
We do, we'll share that with them.
Okay. It's just quite a project.
It is.
Which brings us to rates. And many of you helped me design this. Since our last meeting in October, we have gone out with a pilot project where we mail postcards to low-income households in our 12 lowest median annual income municipalities, along with advertising in those communities too. And we have been sharing from Government Affairs is out all the time talking to municipalities about this and putting them in libraries and all sorts of stuff. So I'm leaving some for you to take wherever you go. But I wanted to let you know that at the end of the first quarter of 2024, we had 896 recipients. At the end of the first quarter of 2025, we have 1,459 recipients, and we have many, many more in the pipeline waiting to be processed by Dollar Energy. So we're going to continue to be doing outreach on this to make sure that people know about it. And yes, you have that lovely municipal building. But libraries, anywhere people might gather. And what we say to people when we're talking to them is, you may know someone who needs help, rather than suggesting that they themselves need help. And in fact, people will say, yeah, my grandmother could use this. So it's pretty effective as we go out there. People like the graphic, and we made it very easy for them, 1, 2, 3 to sign up. And we're continuing to do that. We now have the ability they can apply online as well as through the social service agencies. And Sharon fields calls from the public all the time. with questions about the program. So I wanted to update you on that. So, you know, I'm pretty excited about having been able to do that and looking forward to taking it through the rest of the communities. I made a mistake on the agenda and didn't put Dave Mons on to give us a brief. So I'm gonna ask the chair to add that to the agenda.
Dave, would you please?
Okay, thank you, everyone. At Three Rivers, we've been working a lot, Julie mentioned communities on multi-municipal lines. Part of the orders for the municipalities were if they had SSOs on their system, they needed to come up with plans to eliminate the SSOs. Not necessarily do the work today, come up with a plan on how to do that. Well, the creative part came on these multi-municipal lines, knowing that many of the SSOs or CSOs on those lines would end up being that responsibility of ALCOSAN should it have transferred. We were very conscious of the need to have ALCOSAN at the table. Mike's team was always there. Tim was at meetings, Julia. We always made sure the municipalities were very cooperative to make sure that what we were going to present on their part, and we did a lot of modeling at Three Rivers, was going to be doable or ALCOSAN had a part of the say in it. And we even looked at where we were going to put potential sites because the order said that the municipal orders say that municipalities shall work with the communities on zoning and sites. So we came up with those areas. I think the ALCOSAN staff, Sam Shaffy, as one person had a great comment, said we don't call them tanks. And this kind of flips people out. They're holding facilities. It's you know, it's interesting. Just those little nuances can really make that difference. So the municipalities really worked forward with that and in cooperation with the health department. All the municipalities had to submit their elimination plans to the health department. The health department shared all those with Three Rivers on a shared site. We took those and we are compiling them into a database, which shortly will be shared with ALCOSAN. We've had a few meetings with them, and it'll detail every one of the reports and the amount of money that is estimated that will be transferred from municipalities to ALCOSAN's responsibility. And I think the cautionary part of this doesn't mean that ALCOSAN is going to necessarily have to spend that by them taking over some of those lines. There's ways they can do that by economies of scale. So that they'll be able to do that a lot better. But it is a huge saving to municipalities. And I think when they start seeing that those responsibilities of those SSOs and CSOs on those multi-municipal lines are no longer their problem. And what I've cautioned the municipalities is don't think that that is going to stop you in further future orders, which he has said there'll be orders that you're going to not have to cut flows. You're going to have to cut flows. Those CSOs and SSOs are a product of the product that the municipalities are sending to that point. So they have to reduce that. So that's one project we work on. The other thing that we've been working on is municipalities had to by I think it was June, had to have all their information in as how they were going to comply with the order, what their I&I reduction was going to be, what their percent capture increases were going to be. And we was an exhibit A, and exhibit B, and exhibit C, they were attached to all these orders. We at Three Rivers created an enhanced exhibit, which outlined a lot of information that we wanted. How are you going to correct your project? What were you going to do? What is the cost? We are putting it into a database. We have shared that with Mike and his team. They give us some great feedback on some things that they thought would be more valuable in that system. So we have worked with that, tweaking that. And what we're going to be able to show out of that is the amount of money that is being spent up in the municipal systems. You know, ALCOSAN has done a tremendous job here, you know, for when we get the product to them, but there's a lot of money that has been spent up in the system. The last thing I would say is, some of the communities have a real challenge on trying to find ways to correct their system. They don't have the funding. Tim has been great. He's coming to our meeting next week Thursday to do a complete presentation on Pro, where it's been, how we can do it. He gets right to the engineers, the managers, he's really helpful. And what we've done in the community was the engineers who got created, and I would say Tim and Mike have been real helpful with us. There was an instance where a community has a CSO. And so in order to separate that system, that's the most effective way to get a separation system. They could not get to the river under the tracks or whatever. That became so costly. Well, their engineer came up with an idea that could they bypass the CSO, put it in the discharge pipe. I don't want to get too into the engineering part, but it got the stormwater to the river, bypassing the CSO, which would stop that overflow as much. Complicated part was trying to get a grow grant. Tim's looking out for the money. Is will DEP accept that? We were able to get a expedited meeting with DEP. Through that, it was actually funny. Tim shaking his head over there. Within 2 days, I think I was able to get them to get a meeting with us. We come up with a schematic shot of what we wanted to do and explain that situation. DEP asked us to send some information over to them. Within a day, we got a response and they approved it. So I think what I wanted to use that last part was to show the cooperation that is working. ALCOSAN, the communities, the engineers thinking outside the box a little bit, and DEP understanding that the communities are really trying. And what happened with this system was if the community could get money later on to go on these railroad tracks, now they have that pipe already separated. So it was a real win, and it's everybody working together. So I wanted to thank Tim and Mike for all that with that, because I think DEP sees that, and when we have those meetings, we have those discussions, we're all there. I think that really helps. And so what we're gathering some of the information for, we're starting to work on what the new gold line standard will be. Tim and Mike's team will be a big part of that because they're going to help us with long-term flow monitoring. So DEP says there will be another set of orders. So we want to get that back. So thanks everybody for your hard work, especially the ALCOSAN.
Thank you. And before we move on, I'm remiss because I was sitting here thinking back, like I said before, I really want to acknowledge Arletta because you've led this through all of that. Well,
It's the credit.
I mean,
me down. That's it. Or left. Need to take it off. I said, Dr. Dixon, that is suicide.
and here you are, and here we are watching the video and seeing, I mean, it's just quite amazing, and your leadership is really wonderful.
Thank you for our appreciate the support and collaboration. You folks made it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now I think we're doing committee.
Working groups.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Committee members' reports on activities in their watersheds.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have stuff happening. We always have stuff happening. Number one is that, before COVID hit, PennDOT and PWSA, Pittsburgh Water now, we're working together to do a project in Sawmill Run. And that project has been started finally. All the permits were granted, and they're doing a small tributary restoration below Moore Park in Beachview. And we're very excited about it. It's a fairly long stretch of this tributary. The tributary has base flow, but it'll be increased. The base flow will be increased. They're going to have a big reduction in sediment And, this is an MS4 project for both PWSA and PennDOT. Also, the tiny little community of Baldwin Township is buying into this so that they can also get credits. So that's an exciting, added benefit for this. Watersheds of South Pittsburgh has just received the okay to submit a grant request to HDR Foundation for educational signage for along this tributary. So we're going to try to compete with yours out there. The other cool thing is that, in the spirit of cooperation, and we've always talked about the importance of collaboration, and this whole situation here and everything that ALCOSAN is doing, in the watershed world, most of you probably don't realize this, but we're always clawing for the next piece of grant funding that comes down the line, and we're all in competition. So 2 years ago, I had a conversation with the Heinz Endowments, and they were like, there were other people who wanted to start other watershed organizations, and Heinz was like, we don't want to do that. We want to see the watershed organizations that exist start to work together in collaboration. So last year, Watersheds of South Pittsburgh wrote a grant to the Forbes funds, and we got funding to create the Three Rivers Urban Watershed Council. And we finished up the strategic planning for that. And we've been meeting and we're moving forward, and we're really focusing a lot on policy changes around water resources. And one of the first things we did was we set up a forum of Q&A for both of the candidates for mayor in the city of Pittsburgh. So this week we had one with Mayor Gainey. On Monday, we're having a Q&A with candidate O'Connor, and the water folks are going to have some hard questions for them. So those are the kinds of things we're moving forward with in Sawmill Run and Watersheds of South Pittsburgh, and we're excited to be at this table and see what else is happening.
And I just want to say, for those of you who do not know, that, this woman here is almost a one-woman show, because in my spare time, I'm president of the board, and she's a one-woman show. And if you listen to all the things that are happening, it's pretty amazing. And we do appreciate ALCOSAN's cooperation and everything happens that goes on. But she's the best grant writer I've ever seen, whether it's from a couple thousand or whatever. And I know it sounds crazy, but we are making a difference in the Sawmill Run watershed. And a lot of it is attributed to Lisa.
I do have to say, I want to acknowledge ALCOSAN in this, because I told Tim this recently, was that we started out, we were a program of Economic Development South, and Economic Development South was falling apart. And we didn't have any money. In fact, I was writing grants, and my grant money was being used for other things. And so it wasn't going to watershed work. And ALCOSAN, Tim and Jan Oliver kept us afloat, because ALCOSAN had us do a project for them, which was enough to keep us afloat till we got funding from Heinz to keep moving forward. So I have to thank ALCOSAN for keeping us in business. Thank you so much.
Where you are in it today. That's wonderful.
Anybody else?
We just, Sheila, I was the manager when they did this, raised their sewer rates 75%. And they just cut contracts for $5 million worth of
Wow.
lining, point repairs. We have 4 contractors: lining, point repairs, SAG repairs, video. We split the township up into 10 quadrants, and we're doing a lot of point repair work. So we're trying.
Yeah, the Pine Creek watershed, we're trying to move along. We have a meeting with the DCED about the intergovernmental cooperative agreement, where finally maybe there would be shared responsibility, shared maintenance costs within the watershed for, like, right now, and doesn't pay for anything to submit the bottom except something that a deal me and Tim made. I do pay him for half of some clean out work he does in Pine Creek at the debris pools by Burger King. And that is, you know, I had a hard time convincing residents and board members, why would you pay for something that's not in your community? That has helped our community tremendously in flooding, in water quality. So, we've been trying really hard in this stormwater committee in the fall. We finally have, we had a meeting with the Army and we're meeting with DCD. And we do have, I would say, a majority of the communities, a lot of new faces who are definitely interested in this. So, we worked with the County Conservation District to get maps of all the projects so that we all know what all we'll be buying off of. So everybody in a particular watershed, if there's a detention facility upstream that, I don't know, they mow the grass 5 times a year and they do this or do that, we would all, everybody downstream would contribute. So that would be another milestone if I saw that. But we're having this, the conversations have moved along, so I'm happy to see that too. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, next we have our working group discussion.
And since we're almost at time, I just wanted to say that, you know, there certainly has been a desire among many of you to continue working groups, but if you look at the draft report that I wrote to the board, I point out the diminishing numbers with retirements, et cetera, and that becomes difficult to continuously ask the same people to do the work. That said, I would like to have all of you attend the working group on Monday morning where Tim will present the new thoughts about the road. We wanted to make sure that you heard it and could have all your questions answered before we go out to the municipalities. And so Monday morning at 9, you will get the link later on this evening. I'm gonna go right back to my office and send the email. And I hope to see you all then. Set for an hour. Set for an hour, and then we will be sending out a word to the municipalities, and we're gonna be providing opportunities for them on Tuesday and Thursday of next week. Can you get the word out to everybody as soon as possible? However you want to do working groups from then on is up for grabs.
Is there any thought process on what we're gonna do working groups?
Well, this is your committee, this
Right.
is your advisory committee, and you can determine whatever you want to meet. And
It's kind of hard. We seem to struggle with this every single year. And then everybody comes up with new ideas. And again, nobody is coming, and I don't think it's indicative of the subject matter or anything like that. I think it has to deal with time.
It
It's
does
very
have-
difficult, and I think to keep having meetings when there's 2 people, that it's kind of, I think we need to.
But there haven't been any committee meetings for a year, have there?
right.
So,
Because I kept
yeah,
sending out surveys.
right, and people
Nobody
weren't
would
responding.
finish the
People were
survey.
responding to the survey.
That's what makes it difficult.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's something that could be done. Like in a morning, that all the committees met at one time,
Yeah, we talked
and
about
then,
that.
you know. It's hard to come to one meeting, let alone 4.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're in my position, I'm at meetings all the time. And it's, like I said, I think we have to be a little more creative, maybe having just once a quarter, like a 9 to noon. And
give
all
people
4,
enough
or whatever
notice.
subject matter, everybody could move from table to table and.
And give people enough notice so that, you know,
Yeah.
people are very busy today and doing different things, and you know, give them enough notice or actually request some dates if people are interested to try and coordinate it. Because I know some people may be interested, but they have a conflict and then it just doesn't work, and you know, that type of thing. And organizing meetings today is really hard. I understand that. But just, you know, planning them so far in advance that, you know, people really would commit.
Yeah, maybe call it like a workshop.
Yeah, Tim mentioned that
Yeah,
the
we
last
probably
meeting, you talked about having a whole day.
Yeah.
That was just for those specific issues.
Anybody like that idea?
Yeah, I do.
All right, so maybe we can.
on isn't working, so.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
so we went through this all last year too,
Yeah.
and then nobody would even fill out the survey. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, and honestly, it's not a criticism, we just think everybody is so understaffed, overworked. You know, all right,
Okay.
yeah, and overburdened with email for sure. Well, except you don't have any electricity. It's not happening. Like, right, maybe we can see what we can come up with, as an outline for that. Next thing, we have new business. I do have something. To on behalf of the ice board, I don't know if anybody's these. I'll take my aluminum foil off, I was trying not to get water all over the place. This is for you, Stevie, for all the wonderful work you have done to help make this committee effective and efficient. I know, I'm sorry about the aluminum foil, I didn't want to get water in Tim's car. Jeannie, these are for you on behalf of everybody here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for everything. You'll certainly be missed.
And
As you will
tried to
too,
talk
when
to
you get a
everybody
copy.
individually to let you know that
And
I will be meeting ALCOSAN at the end of May to go back to my first career, which is organizing for women's rights. So I'm very excited about it. It was a very hard decision, and I hope you'll all stay in my life. Oh, thank you. This is the best.
Of all days for the electricity, the flowers off where these were. At 3 AM, I was having a heart attack because I ordered them that was picking them up. And so I had to get down there and bang on the door.
Thank you.
They're here. So, and that's, on behalf of all of us.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Been a wonderful journey with all of you. I've enjoyed your company and looking forward to crossing paths along the way. Tim, we don't bump into each other at all when we live in the same area.
Well, now that you're not doing this, you can call and bitch about stuff and share. Yeah.
I told you, no, we're not. Thank you all.
When we close, you could stop for lunch.
Yes, I will.
Moments too.
I know where you live.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any public comment?
No.
Nope. All right, very good. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Well, we don't even. get a quorum.
You just call it.
Yeah, we'll
Just
just
call it.
call it. We're calling it. Call it. 7 PM.
Right on.